Well, good morning, everyone joining us in person or on our live stream. This is week 3 of our series on sharing our faith and living out our faith at work. And we've looked through scriptures about work, God's work, and our human work. And we have heard from people in different professions over these couple of weeks. We've heard from people in business, we've heard from people in law and ethics, and this week we have the opportunity to hear from people in all kinds of education. So we have Leslie Lewis, who will talk about being an occupational therapist with elementary school children. We have Meg Tredenick, a science teacher, and we have Craig Laird, a college English professor. So we have a wonderful spectrum of people's experience of how their faith animates their profession and their life. So we're so glad to be together. Those of you joining us at home on the live stream, you can send us questions or comments through the formation questions at stdavidschurch.org, or right on that live stream page. There's a form that you can fill out and click, and then it'll come to us, and then we'll share it with our speakers. So I just love to introduce you all and have you all talk about how your faith is working out in your lives. So thank you.
I'm Leslie Lewis, and I am a pediatric school-based occupational therapist. And I have been an occupational therapist for a very long time, since 1993. But I have also worked with adult populations as well when I first started out. I am very, very blessed and fortunate to be in a profession that completely aligns with my faith. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the definition of occupational therapy is for those of you who may not know. Occupational therapy is a profession that helps people get back to their occupations of life. That doesn't necessarily just mean your vocation, like what your job or your employment is, but it means everything that makes you up to be a human being, whether you're a mom or a daughter or a clergy or a sister or a brother or a worker or a volunteer or whatever it is that make up your occupations of your life, a cook, a cleaner, whatever it may be, a homemaker, whatever. Those are the things that we try to help you get back to if you've had some sort of accident or problem or something that set you back or obstacle, whether it be illness or injury or anything like that. And so we try to help get you back to those things. I specifically work in a school, which is really an amazing and wonderful, great place for me, Leslie Lewis, to be, because I've loved children, and I always have my whole life. I've been a babysitter, and I've always done all kinds of things with kids, and I am very fortunate to have 2 children. I feel very blessed that I was honored to have 2 wonderful human beings, 2 young men that are now adults, which is very fun and funny. But they're great people, and I feel very blessed by God to have had that experience and continue to have that experience with them as well. In my profession, I work in an elementary school, kindergarten through 4th grade, and I love it. I love working with the kids. I love everything about it. And when I was looking over information and trying to figure out, well, how does this align with what we believe in? Well, it's like everything. Even my profession has been around for 100 years. It started after World War I, when a lot of the veterans were returning home and they had different disabilities and they couldn't work, and there was a lot of mental health issues as well. Occupational therapists got really involved with positive mental health and improving the ability and the skill of the people. Like during the arts and crafts movement, it was very important. And so we are applying all of those principles, but it was really cool. We have a national organization. I'm licensed to practice in the state of Pennsylvania, so I had to pass an exam to be competent to be able to provide services in the state of Pennsylvania. We have a national organization called the American Occupational Therapy Association, and I was going over just to review and refresh my memory about what the principles of there were, and this came up and was so in line with faith and what we talk about. So first of all, we have principles that guide our decision making and our practice, and here, listen to these. This is so amazing. Our core values are altruism, equality, freedom, justice, dignity, truth, and prudence. Those are the core basis of what an occupational therapist is. Now, I can tell you, in my journey of becoming an occupational therapist, I have also had a journey of faith too. I had some very personal tragedies occur in my life many years ago that made me question my faith and my belief in God. And it has been a long journey. I was raised in a different faith than the Episcopal faith. I came here with my children in 2005. And I have found my place, and I love St. David's, and I love everything about it. And I'm fondly known as the church lady in my house because I come and do a lot of things and volunteer here. But that's what I was looking for in my community, for me, Leslie, the person that I am. When we talk about my profession and how it aligns completely with what I do. I feel like every day I get to work with someone else's beautiful child, and I revere them like they were my own, and I treat them as though they were my own, and I care for them and love them like they were my own. And I don't always get to see the fruits of my labor or the fruits of my intervention or the fruits of my helping that student because they leave and they go to middle school and then they go to high school. But every once in a while, I get those rare moments, which I just had one on Friday when I went out to dinner, and I'm going to cry. This young woman, who I haven't seen since she was in 4th grade, is graduating from high school this year, and she came over to me in a restaurant where she worked and said, I saw that there was the name Lewis on the reservation, and she said, I had to come over and see if it was the Mrs. Lewis. And I couldn't believe that she remembered me or that that meant something to her. And I just started to cry. I was like so taken aback, and just because I don't get that often. I don't get to see that. I get to see it when they walk across the graduation thing and I can say, I was a part of that, or I helped that when they were younger, or I helped them to get to that point. And not that it's about the accolades or anything, but I can always feel like I had a little small part. And I think for me, when Frank was talking about it today, the biggest thing that guides me is love. I love what I do. I don't always love how I have to do it, and I think we all find those like obstacles and pitfalls in our lives, that there's bureaucracy and red tape and things that sometimes make you not feel very comfortable about what you're doing, and you have to be true to yourself and your own principles and what's right for the student or the people that you're working with, and really stand up. I am the voice of some of my kids because some of them don't have a voice, and so I'm trying to help them be included and be as independent and productive of a student. Their occupation is being a student and helping them be that as much as they can. So I am very blessed because I feel like I found a profession, and then I also, in my journey through faith, found that my faith really aligned exactly with what I'm doing for my job or my occupation. And it's very funny because I've been in the profession, I've mentored many people, and I've considered going into more administration, and I keep saying no, even to this day, because I feel honestly that God gave me certain strengths, and one of my strengths is being able to connect with kids, and I feel very passionate about that, and I still have that even though I'm older and not quite as hip and don't know all the video games that they're playing now, and nor really care, but that's another thing. But I think that that's one thing that's really, I feel so blessed to have it all in alignment, and it continues to be a journey. I keep learning and finding out new things and trying to continue. I think I believe it was Frank, and I don't know when it was, and it could have been years ago, it could have been last week, to be honest with you, because my memory's not that great, but he gave a sermon one time, and it was about Jesus and like how we could be more like Jesus, and he said something about like, well, how would you behave, or what would you do if Jesus were sitting next to you? And I try to remind myself of that every single time I get frustrated, or a student is misbehaving, or they're perhaps not acting in the most appropriate way. And I really try to find within myself, okay, what could I do to change to help that be a more positive experience for that student? And I think that my faith really does guide that.
Okay. Good morning. Oh. Something is happening to the iPad. Let me
Sure. Of course.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, I'm just going to hold it. Because, all right, good morning. My name is Meg Trudenick, and I currently teach high school science at Sacred Heart Academy, which isn't too far from here in Bryn Mawr. And I'm happy to be speaking to you today about my faith and how it impacts my career as a teacher. Just to kind of give you some background about myself, I was fortunate to be raised in a loving, faithful family in the Presbyterian Church. I've always loved science and went on to major in engineering in college. Met my husband Michael when we were in college. While faith was important to our relationship, Michael and I did not focus on finding a church until we moved to this area. Michael was raised I was raised Presbyterian, he was raised Episcopalian. And so we visited a variety of Presbyterian and Episcopal churches in the area. Our first visit to St. David's is a story that we love to tell. We planned to come to St. David's for a Christmas Eve. I'd come earlier in the day to make sure I could find it. As you all know, this is before, GPS and our phones, and I had directions. I walked into the old sanctuary, so that's where our fellowship hall is now, our St. David's Hall, and I immediately felt at home because the Georgian architecture was very similar to the Presbyterian Church in Morrisville, Pennsylvania, that I had spent many years at. I made sure that I had the correct time for the service, but when we arrived that evening, it was already underway. While we were sitting in the congregation, I leaned over to Mike and said, "Have they mentioned Jesus?" And then when everyone started singing Jingle Bells, I leaned to the person next to me to ask if this was the Episcopalian service. Here, the mainline Unitarian church up the street had a fire, and St. David's was sharing their worship space. Mike and I got up and went down to the old church laughing all the way. About 5 years later, our neighbors at the time, John and Susan Nagy, who are parishioners here, invited us to dinner at their church. When we arrived and drove up the driveway, Mike and I both said at the same time, "Oh my gosh, it's the Jingle Bell Church." And we started to laugh. We have been here ever since because we knew it was meant to be. I was received by the church the next year, and both of our sons have been baptized and confirmed. Hoping maybe one will get married here, but St. David's has been a very important part of our lives for about 25 years. After working as an engineer in the microelectronics industry for about 20 years, I started to think about making a career change. I frequently found myself in teaching situations. I was unhappy with how my career and the direction of my company was going and kept feeling a tug towards teaching. I now describe this as my awakening to the Holy Spirit. Well, I'm sorry. While I secretly began taking classes because I didn't want the company that had been so good to me if it didn't all work out, I didn't want to jeopardize my job. But the steps I kept taking felt like the right ones. I dealt with a lot of anxiety, over Mike can attest to, over whether I should make the leap or not. But because I was listening, I kept going. But just as I was about to leave my job to begin student teaching, Michael was laid off from his job. Here I was about to conscientiously leave my job of 25 years to begin student teaching, where not only would I not get paid, don't know if you know all this, I had to pay for 15 credits of tuition. So while I felt I was following the right path all through my process of achieving my teaching certification, I have to admit that this was a big bump in the road. Mike and I realized we needed some spiritual guidance and came to see Frank. And I will never forget what Frank said to us. He's like, "Do you have faith that you will both have jobs a year from now?" We took some time, and he kept looking at me and repeating it. And he would not let us say no, and said we needed to continue on our plan. Of course, Frank was right. Maybe it's a good thing he's not in the room, but Frank was right. And Michael and I were both offered jobs, believe it or not, in the same week, some months later. So I am just about to finish my 10th year teaching physics and environmental science at Sacred Heart, which is an all-girls independent Catholic school. While I will admit I've always preferred a St. David's liturgy over a Catholic Mass, I have learned to fall in love with the environment that I teach in. The Sacred Heart Global Network of Schools are based on the teachings of St. Madeleine Sophie Barrett, where 5 faith-based goals are at the core of our teaching. This environment has allowed me to have deep, in-depth conversations about the intersections of faith and science. I think we frequently hear about how many scientists are atheists, but many more are people of faith. It's been written that Isaac Newton spent more time on theology than he did on science. Charles Darwin suffered from anxiety-ridden ailments for years because he knew the observations and his theory about evolution were in direct opposition to his faith. So I have tried as an educator to model that you can study and be inspired by science while still having our faith.
Okay, I'm Craig Laird. I teach first-year composition, English composition at Drexel University and Montgomery County Community College. And I've been doing this for 18 years. Before becoming a university professor, I was in industry. I worked for a small company for 12 years that developed industrial training materials, and then for a very large corporation for another 19 years doing very much the same thing. When I first started working, one of my co-workers, a woman who managed the staff, a woman named Sue Reardon, modeled for me what it means to be a Christian in daily work. My own mother, her attitude was, Sunday school is for Sunday mornings. The real world isn't a Sunday school. So do unto others before they do unto you. And that took a while to get over, but I saw that Sue Reardon, the way she always had her staff's best interests in mind, the way she always was trying to find an accommodation that the company could live with and that would help the staff do their best work, that really produced better results than trying to exploit the staff. So after 31 years in industry, I was laid off and needed to find work. I had a choice of moving to Detroit. Most of the work that I had done had been in the automotive industry. So if I wanted to continue writing and developing training materials for dealership mechanics, I would have to move to Detroit or go into teaching. And I had always wanted to be a teacher, so I became an adjunct professor. The dangers that university professors face are arrogance and laziness. It's so tempting, even for an adjunct, and you have full professors, you have associate professors, you have assistant professors, and then you have us gypsies, the adjuncts. The danger, even for us, adjuncts, is to think that, with all of our fancy degrees and so on, that we're better than the students. We have to constantly remind ourselves that they are the face of Jesus, even when they're being annoying. And some of them sometimes can be, most of them are lovely people, but some of them are very annoying. I have individual conferences with each student every month, 10 minutes with each student, which they really appreciate for the most part, because they love getting individual attention. So a student will sign up for an individual conference and then not show up. Then we'll sign up for another individual conference of a couple days later and again not show up. So now not only have they wasted 20 minutes of my time, but they've also bumped some other poor student out of a slot. And yet I remind myself that they are the face of Jesus, and if I love Jesus, then I must love them too, even when they're being super annoying. As far as the laziness part goes, to tendencies, particularly for tenured faculty, is to try to find shortcuts, try to find ways of doing the job with less effort and with less devotion of time and energy. And so every year as I revise each course that I'm teaching, I have to look at, if I make this change, the question is not will this mean more work on my part, but will this make me a better and more effective teacher? And that is my North Star, is there a way for me to be a better and more effective teacher?
I think that to your point, Craig, like when you're saying about, the laziness, I think that happens in many different professions, and I think that that's something, again, that propels me to keep doing more and doing not necessarily always more, but doing it better, or trying to reach more people than just the one student that I'm working with. Like trying to, especially now, COVID has really affected our kids. I mean, horribly so. And I know that everybody says that, but I live it every day with these poor kids that are really dysregulated and are having such hard times like interacting with their peers because they haven't been with them and they don't know how to negotiate or share or be with one another. And I see that every day, and it's so easy to, just follow what you've always done or just follow. It is so much harder to think outside of the box and to try to change it or buck the system and make it better or make a change more globally, especially given the constraints. I am not employed by the district and with which I work. I'm an independent contractor. I'm considered self-employed. So I kind of have to answer to myself for my own boss in a way, but I also have a sticky wicket because I represent the school district and I also represent the agency with whom I contract through, and also myself. So, and I feel like standing for myself trumps all of those things because I have to do what's right in my eyes and stick up for what I believe in and what I'm doing. And it can be very difficult. Not only are we dealing, and I know that Meg has this experience, and maybe not so as much, Craig, hopefully, at college level, but we have parents that are getting involved and having to handle and manage parental input and concerns and sometimes craziness and despair and anger and frustration. And so I feel like, for me, again, like just what you were saying, I feel like that's where kind of my faith kicks in, kind of thinking again about if Jesus were among us, how would I behave? And sometimes I don't always make the mark. I'm not always like 100% perfect or right or all the time meeting that bar. But I think in the times where like it's kind of like you need to be picked back up or it's kind of straighten your clothes again, or however you want to, whatever analogy you want to use, that's what sort of guides me and helps me to keep propelling forward and to keep doing that. And I feel like that has not only like been pervasive in my work, my actual job of being an occupational therapist, but also in everything that I do. Like people who know me, I don't just do it like this. I try to do it like this and then get everybody else excited about it as I am, and so that they'll want to do it like this too. So I think that, but again, those are the gifts that I feel like I was given by God, and that is my duty to share them and to help facilitate kindness and goodness among everyone, like not just people I work with or the students or all of that, but also the clerk at the Wawa or the, again, like just being kind and generous to all of those. And I feel like that really permeates like everything that I try to do. And I do feel that it is my faith in goodness and kindness and what's right and love, like Frank said today, that is what like continues to drive me, especially when you have those kids that are super difficult or being just little turkeys, not having a good day or whatever. And I try to remember that and try to make them laugh, or try to remember that maybe one person really cared about them so much that maybe that's what helped them to get through that hump, or that they felt comfortable coming to school because I do genuinely care, and I think it comes across, and I feel so lucky. Again, I feel super blessed that I'm able to do this every day and go and be a part of other people's lives. Again, I don't think that parents necessarily recognize all that is being done for their kids at school in so many ways, not just through teaching and educating them with, math and science and all of that, but that, I look at some of the wonderful things that Meg has done. I've seen like some of the postings about the cool activity she does for physics. I want to go to the amusement park with her and her class. Like, she does the coolest things to help the kids learn in a fun way how physics can involve all parts of your life, or what can go on. And those are the things that those kids are going to remember, and that's going to help drive them. And it makes me passionate about the children's education here at church and confirmation, and it makes me want to, I can sit back and complain and say, oh, that's just horrible, or that should have been done better, but I could also be a part of the solution. And I think it's so hard to listen to that voice, to pick yourself up and go, like you did, Meg, with becoming a teacher. You're a great teacher, and I don't even see you teach every day, but I know it because of your heart and soul, and I remember when you were going through that. And I think that, I don't know, I just think it's so really, really awesome in my life that I have this like kind of balance in a way of being able to insert those kinds of things in my everyday of what I'm doing, and not be lazy, and still be passionate about what I'm excited about learning.
I wonder, before we open up to questions here, I wonder, are there any scriptural passages or parables or characters in the Bible that kind of are examples or models for the three of you in your work as educators and Christians in your profession?
Well, for me, it would be the laborers in the vineyard, because I run into that every day. I have students who are really conscientious and hardworking, and do all of their assignments and do them reasonably well. And then I have others who will wait till the very last minute and toss something toward me that's actually really good, but I can tell that they only spent 20 minutes on it. No, not instead of 10 hours, and so I have to be fair to all of them, and in the grading, have the grading reflect the results as much as possible, rather than the amount of effort that they actually put into it. The question, because the question is always what's in the student's best interest, and if being rewarded for grinding away and trying to do work that's actually probably over their head, being told that this is A+ work would probably not be in their interest.
Emily had given us some things to prepare for this, and so I was like, I love to Google, right? I was like, biblical passages having to do with physics. And I came upon this one, and I was like, I really like this. So it's from Job 26, verse 7. And it says, he spreads out the northern skies over empty space. He suspends the earth over nothing. And I normally finish off our year in physics with a unit on astronomy. I'm so excited. Next year I'm actually going to get to teach a class on astronomy. And it's been one of these intersections of faith and science. And so when you start talking about, I have had students, ask me, well, wait, and they start to think about even just like our Earth and then the solar system and go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can just see that they are feeling smaller and smaller and more insignificant. And this is where I say to them, and then we even if you get, oh my gosh, you start to talk about the Big Bang, then I had a student, actually she kind of had not a breakdown of her faith, but she questioned it. Very, I think more just she, very, sorry, I'm struggling to find the word, but just had learned her Bible stories and was kind of sticking with it. And I've said this, like, okay, the story of Genesis, we all know it, and I said, I like to think, like, okay, time is, you start talking about time, and time is just a very interesting topic when you start to really think about it. And I was like, so who's to say those 7 days were exactly 24 hours? And I said, things still occurred in the same order. And, and I said, and then this is where, and I've said this to my students, and this is where I do feel blessed, being able to talk about my faith openly, and because it helps. Those days when things are tough, and I said, this is where I'd like to see that there is something bigger that started it all, and you shouldn't be afraid to feel that way. And so I'm going to actually thank you, Emily, for making us kind of think about this. I would like to take this forward with me.
I think for me, I was also Googling things, but more so that had to do with children, and I found these really interesting statistics that children are named 1,700 times in the Bible, or there's all these different things. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But the one thing that I found that I felt was stuck with me was from Romans 13. And it talks about, I don't think I wrote the whole thing down, so I apologize that this is not exactly verbatim, but it says owe no one anything except to love each other, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you should not you shall love your neighbor as yourself, for love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is fulfilling the law. So I just feel like that's kind of what drives me, is to love passionately and fiercely and hard, however you want to say it, as much as you can. And even though it's hard sometimes, it's hard to love some people sometimes, not just necessarily in your job. I'm sure we all have, unfortunately, those kids that stick out that you're like, oh, I'm glad they're in 4th grade this year. That sounds horrible, but it's true. Oh, I'm glad they're moving on. Okay, great. Or the ones that you cry, because they are moving on, because you've invested so much of yourself or your time or treasure or talent into helping that student or feeling a connection with them. But I also think that it is, I lost my train of thought, I'm so sorry. I was going to say something else, and if I think of it, I'll let you know.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments? People want to jump in? Yeah. Anthony.
No, what Meg was talking about was interesting, and because you're teaching in the sciences, and you have astronomy and then archaeology, and those are 2 areas where people, dinosaur bones from billions of years ago, or trying to, and you mentioned time, right? So, but that's some of the, I guess, science versus religion things that often come up. So how do you handle some of those basic questions that you've been, I'm sure, encountering?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we're a small school in that I am the only physics teacher. We have 1 chemistry teacher. Actually, we're looking for a chemistry teacher. Let me know. Sorry for the sidebar. And our biology teacher. But we've all had these conversations of, oh my gosh. And it's not even, it could be information from their parents. So much of it now is, oh, I saw it on TikTok. And so my first thing is okay, where's your evidence and what's it from? But then we open it up to a conversation that, to be able to, because, and I said, I am not going to jeopardize what I've learned through science over the years. I can't say that, everyone's allowed to have their opinions, but I always go back to the evidence. And we have this idea that's called claims evidence reasoning. And you can use it for, really any subject of, you have a claim, so think of it kind of like a crazy idea. and then that's your theory, and then you need the evidence. And it's not just, and I always say this, I want you to be able to back up what you say and not just say something is true for the sake of saying it's true. Because so many times now you hear, well, I said this or I heard this somewhere. And then be able to put together an argument based on that evidence to support your claim. And so I have to say I've been lucky. I also teach environmental science, so I had the parent during back to school night going, do you think climate change is real? And I said, will I be sharing with your daughter about the science behind it? Absolutely. And I said, I believe in God. That's my faith. Like, I don't have direct evidence to, wish I could say. I've, sat next to Jesus, but, I know he's there. I feel him. I feel God with me. So, I just try to open up the conversations, and then, I've had once or twice over the years where I've pulled in a parent and just said, not to, I always want to model myself as a Christian, and to not, I don't, not only just to not say anything inappropriately, it's just, we have this time with these students, but the majority of that's they're formed by their families. We only have them for just
Microcosm.
Right, these moments in time. So I'd like to say there's a set answer for dealing with that, but my students know, they see something, I'm bring it in, let's talk about it. And that's where I do like teaching in a private school. We have the time. Now, they will get too silly, but.
So, and in contrast, I work in a public school, so you're not really supposed to talk about God with any of the students, but we have a lot of diverse populations of students that are in the school where I am, and it's actually a local school. We have lots of languages that are spoken and lots of different holidays that are observed. One thing that I think is fantastic that the school has started to do is to explore all of the different holidays, for all different faiths and different religions and different beliefs. And so they do a whole series around the holiday time about different beliefs and different things. I think that's lovely. I've had some questions come up. I've had the cutest things. Some of the little kids that I work with, well, God did that. They'll say it in a group or something. I was like, well, if you think so, then that's wonderful. And so and one student said something I was asking about one of the Muslim holidays that had just come up, and I was asking them about it, and he said, I'm not allowed to talk about that at school. I said, why not? I said, you're allowed to talk about it. I said, you're allowed to share what you believe or what your family practices or what you do. I said, it's okay to share that. I said, that's how all of us learn too. I don't know this about, and I'd really like to hear what you do. What are some of the things? Do you have a special dinner? Do you do, that kind of thing. So, and it was made him more comfortable because oh, well, yeah. And then he, started to talk all about what they do and all of that. And so that, I feel like that's our opportunity. Again, we have them for this microcosm, but to make them think or problem solve or understand that not everybody thinks the same exact way, and that's okay, that we have to have this conversation to figure out, well, what goes on or what happens. And I think, so that's a little bit different in the public school setting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, for sure.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, Jeremy.
I really appreciate all of you taking time to share your experiences. The world hates us, hates Christianity. And so it not only takes an effort to resist laziness and to resist arrogance, but we also then have to take that next step and be courageous in sharing our faith. Are there examples that you could share or would be willing to share about witnessing to coworkers or outside of the classroom, or where someone asks a question, what really animates you in terms of your daily behavior? Why are you so different from all the other people we see around us? So that takes a lot of courage. It could, in some cases, risk your job. I've seen friends of mine that have actually lost their jobs over sharing their faith. So it takes a lot of courage. But are there examples that you've seen or in your own experiences where not just living your faith, but sharing overtly, you know, I am a Christian and this is what really animates me? Thank you.
I don't make any bones about the fact that I'm Christian. However, a minority of my students are Christian. I have a few Christian students, as well as Muslim, as well as Jewish, as well as Hindu. Majority of the students are not religiously affiliated. Some of them are spiritual but not religious. Others are none of the above. But I make no bones about the fact that I am Christian. I let the students know that, okay, I'm obviously white, I'm obviously male, I am heterosexual, and I am Christian. But I stand with the students who are not male, who are not white, who are not Christian, who are not heterosexual, that in their daily battles I am on their side.
I have to say, and this is where part of my journey, I do feel that I was led towards a faith-based institution. So I have to say, I've never had the experience where I had to fear for my faith. So I feel lucky in that. So I'm not saying like on a daily basis I'm proselytizing, but I do take the opportunity. Our school is also very service-based, and so our students have to do a minimum of so many hours every year. And I've even had we've had an experience where here at St. David's and my school have had intersections of service opportunities. And so I do feel I have friends that are in the teaching position in more public school settings, and we have had, I will say, like, even though we are a faith-based school, not 100% of our students they're not even just Catholic, they are other faiths as well. And we just kind of use it as an opportunity for education. So yeah, I don't know if you can speak better to that, Leslie, because I've had a little different situation.
There's rules and there's written rules and unwritten rules about what we're allowed to talk about or what we're allowed to say in a public school. But I would say people know that I'm Christian. I think they'll ask me what I did this weekend, and I'll say, I volunteer at a church in the city on Saturdays. They do a feeding ministry there, and I go every Saturday and try to help out with that. So I think by my actions and what I do and what I talk about, I don't have any qualms saying that. I wouldn't leave out that it was a church that I was helping. I wouldn't do that. I would just say it, and that it's nice to help other people, no matter who they are. Whether and I said we just have a relationship with this church through my own church. I always invite people to the fair.
Yeah.
I'm always inviting everyone. I was like, you have to come, it's so great. But that's not necessarily my faith, but just saying that what our church does, and that that we do a lot of community outreach and things. And I've been to Uganda. I've been fortunate to be able to go to Uganda and have that experience, and so I can really speak to that. And in a way that I've shared that is our first grade does Africa every year, and I made a whole slideshow of what a school was like in Africa, because we went to Trinity, which is where Romans and Sarah have their school, and I showed them what their cafeteria was like. And that wasn't necessarily faith-based, or I didn't I just talked about it, that it was what a school was like, but my faith did lead me there.
Absolutely.
So so that's been exciting, because I've been able to share that with years and years. They've been showing my video of Uganda with the students, so I hope to be able to update that, especially now that I have a little more tech savvy, that I could do some more things. But and then they study animals and everything, and I showed them how we were able to see go on safari and see some of the animals on live. So I think that, I don't know, I don't shy away from it, and I know that people know. And it was funny because one of the teachers said to me, you must be Christian, right? And I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I had never been approached by another teacher like that before. And then I was like, well, why? She's like, oh, I just knew it. Like it was a very positive thing, but I was like, well, why does that matter, or why? She's like, I just knew it because the way that you are. And I was like, then that's a good thing? Like, I was trying to read her, and she's like, oh yeah, absolutely, it's a great thing. But I don't think that, and I think that we're shy to talk about things like that. My close friends, I do, like the close teachers. I happen to work with someone who goes to this church. She works in the room right next to me. I'm her son's confirmation mentor, so we talk about confirmation all the time, and we talk about things like that at school together with one another a lot. So I do have that connection, which is nice, but I wouldn't say that it's something that I'm like wearing openly on my sleeve each time. But it definitely guides my decisions and the way that I interact with other people, and trying to really be aware of other people's points of view. And if a parent is angry, to try to have an understanding of why they would feel that way, or and try to help and say, look, and express my genuine concern and sincere participation in their child's improvement, and try to let them know, like, we got this. We are really here to help your child, and you can trust us, and you can believe in us that we are doing everything we can. Like, I would stand on my head for whatever your kid needed. And honestly, I mean that. And I have done that. I have done that. I buy things, I get things, I make things, I do crazy stuff, I make up songs. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I would do for your child. And I think that that's the part that I try to express. And yeah, that's my faith for sure. That totally guides that. So I don't know, I just feel so blessed though, and so lucky. And I hear like people who have jobs, and I don't mean to diss this, but it's so foreign to me to have a job in finance or some big technology. I don't understand a lot of it, and I don't get it at all, and it's not something that I really I can comprehend, because I feel like I'm like so much more connected with people that I work with. Like, I don't know, it's just totally different.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Craig had to slip out for lectionary Bible study, but I thought I might just close us. The two of you and Craig did such a great job of giving us that encouragement to live out faith into all parts of our life. So just close with a piece of scripture from Colossians. And we've got the handouts of all the scripture passages. If people didn't get them in the last couple of weeks, they're here. So this is from Colossians 3. They say, whatever you do, whether in speech or action, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, and give thanks to God the Father through him. Whatever you do it from the heart for the Lord and not for people. You know that you will receive an inheritance as a reward, for you serve the Lord Christ. So we thank you for that encouragement, and continuing on in the work God has called us all to do. Amen.
Thank you.